Let's head back to Massachusetts now. We are watching such an interesting case there out of Boston. This is a retrial of an Irish firefighter, and it's a rape case. The emergency room doctor is testifying now about treating the alleged victim.
And just a reminder, we are under a court order not to say the accuser's name, so please note, you might hear the audio drop when her name is mentioned.
Your first and last name for the record.
Yes, my name is Lindsay, Lindsay. Last name is Walsh, Walsh.
How are you currently employed?
I'm a fourth-year resident physician in the Harvard-affiliated emergency medicine residency at Mass General Brigham.
Could you please describe your educational background?
Yes, I graduated with a Bachelor of Arts from Dartmouth College. I received my post-baccalaureate education in pre-medical studies from Redness University. I attended University of Massachusetts Medical School for my medical degree, and I'm currently a resident at the aforementioned program.
Can you explain what your responsibilities are in your current role as a fourth-year resident with Mass General Brigham?
Yes, as a fourth-year resident, I am a supervising resident, which means I have junior residents that are presenting to me in the emergency department, and we take care of patients together, but I'm overseeing the clinical care that junior residents provide. And then I'm also being overseen by an attending physician who is a fully licensed emergency medicine physician who has gone through a program similar to what I am in now.
Thank you. Turning your attention now to a date back in March of 2024, specifically March 15, 2024. Did you participate in the medical treatment of a woman named during the early morning hours of that day?
Yes, I did.
Did you document your medical treatment of that day?
Yes.
Within the emergency department, how do you and other doctors and staff document your notes regarding a patient's care?
We document in a medical record that is digital and it's protected so that only care providers who are caring for that specific patient have access to. That includes nurses, doctors, social workers, etc. But we document in a note that then becomes part of the patient's permanent digital medical record.
Were there other doctors and nurses that morning who were involved in treatment?
Yes, there were.
Did those other providers who saw her make notes as well?
Yes.
And in this case, were your notes and their notes preserved in the record-keeping system at Mass General Hospital as part of medical record?
Yes.
Have you seen a copy of record of treatment from March 15, 2024 at Mass General?
Yes, I have.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes, you don't need to ask.
Thank you. Show you a document and ask if you recognize what it is. I'll hand it to you. Thank you.
Yes, I do. This is the medical record.
I move to introduce this as Commonwealth's Exhibit 1, Your Honor.
Is it the binder?
Yes.
Yes. Any objection?
No objection.
Okay, that will be marked as exhibit.
Wait.
Exhibit 1.
Thank you.
Jurors, anything that's an exhibit with a number is something that you will have with you. So it might be shown to you in the courtroom, might be discussed in the courtroom, but either way, whether you hear it or see it in the courtroom, you will also have it.
So, Dr. Walsh, as the resident.
All right, here with us now to discuss National Trial Attorney Michael Jaffer. Michael, I have to mention something that was in, first of all, thank you for joining us both. I jumped right in. I know you too well. All right, so here's the thing.
I'm on the,
are you able to hear?
yeah, I'm not here. Yeah.
Okay, so he may not be able to hear us. We're going to let them work on that. And Kelly, I just had to mention during the defense opening statement something you and I had been talking about, which is the claim that this victim has never identified the defendant as her attacker. And that's pretty significant.
It's very significant. And the prosecutor's going to have to work with that. Defense counsel, it's just such, it's very powerful for a defense counsel because he can say that. She has never identified my client as the person who did this to her. So the prosecutor has to use other evidence to point to him. So it's going to be interesting to see how they decide to, go back and forth with this, what evidence is presented by the prosecutor to say, yes, it was him. But of course, what we've heard so far in the opening is he was his roommate in the hotel room.
Right, and from what I understand, and the prosecution would have to present this evidence, the video cameras in hotels that show the comings and goings of that hotel room, I think assisted law enforcement. Let's do this. We will take a break, and on the other side of the break, the doctor continues her testimony about treating the alleged victim in the Irish firefighter rape trial.
And it only took the jury about an hour and a half to reach a verdict in the toxic relationship murder trial. This is for Daisy Link. We'll have that for you when Court TV Live returns.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Judge Ashley Wilcott.
And I'm Kelly Craft, in tonight from Michael Ayala. Thank you for being with us. We will get you back to court in a moment. But first, we want to tell you about what happened in Florida earlier today. A jury has found the defendant in the toxic murder trial guilty of second-degree murder.
The jury deliberated just over 1 hour and a half before reaching this verdict.
We, the jury in Miami-Dade County, Florida, find the defendant, Daisy Link, as to count 1, second-degree murder, guilty of second-degree murder. If you find the defendant guilty of second-degree murder, you must answer each of the following questions. Number 1, did the defendant actually possess a firearm during the commission of the crime? Yes. Number 2, did the defendant discharge a firearm during the commission of the crime? Yes. 3, did the defendant discharge a firearm causing death during the commission of the crime? Yes.
Daisy Link wiped away tears after she was convicted of second-degree murder in the shooting death of her partner, Pedro Jimenez, on June 25th of 2022. She now faces life in prison without parole, and her sentencing is tentatively set for next month.
Yesterday, Link testified that she shot at her boyfriend in an effort to scare him off, not realizing that she actually had struck him in the leg, in which she hit a main artery.
And she could be seen on police body cam hysterically crying when she saw Jimenez dying on the ground. The couple shared 2 children together. In court documents, officers described the relationship between Link and Jimenez as one marred by long-term physical abuse and domestic violence.
Meanwhile, we do want to get you back to court in Boston, Massachusetts. This is for Court TV's newest case. We're calling it the Irish firefighter rape trial. The defendant's name, Terence Crosbie. He was visiting Boston from Ireland. He's accused of raping a woman inside a hotel room. His first trial ended in a mistrial.
The woman told police that she had met Crosbie's friend at a restaurant and that the 2 of them went back to the friend's hotel room, which he was sharing with the defendant, to have consensual sex. Now, after falling asleep in the other bed, the victim said she woke up to find the defendant raping her.
Now, by court order, we are not allowed to mention the victim's name, so you're going to hear some audio drops from time to time. Let's go ahead and listen to more testimony. This is from the emergency room doctor who treated the victim in this case.
What is the time frame, of your care?
So the time frame of my care was from March 15th at 3:10 a.m. Until March 15th at 7:26 a.m., which was when we switched off care to the oncoming morning team.
I asked you earlier as well if you performed the evidence collection kit with a registered nurse. Was her name Carly Littlejohn?
Yes.
And do you see Miss Littlejohn represented on this timeline as well?
Yes, I do.
And so is it fair to say that her care of would have been from 3:20 a.m. until 7:34 a.m. according to this this record?
Yes.
All right, so moving down to the timeline on page 13 of Exhibit 1. Do you see where it says ED care timeline at the beginning of, at the top left of the page?
Yes.
So can we just move through this page and I'll ask you to explain what is noted within the timeline?
Yes.
Okay, so starting from the beginning, can you explain what this timeline shows?
Yes, so at 3:05 a.m., an emergency encounter was created, which was when the patient came to triage. There's a name, and they have to enter the medical information into the chart to get her registered. So that is what happened at 3:05:32. Then an arrival complaint was assigned, listed as SA. At 3:06, there's a standard travel and symptom screening that's done. At 3:07 a.m., there was an entry to start the triage note portion of her registration. At 3:07:34, there was a chief complaint that was updated. And then at 3:07:35, the triage note is published in the chart.
I apologize.
That's okay.
I went to the next page instead of just scrolling down a bit. So looking on the right side of the screen, I see the name Jennifer McBrien, an RN.
Yes.
Would that be registered nurse?
Yes.
So does that indicate that she is the one who is performing what's documented here?
Yes, she was presumably the triage nurse registering the patient.
Okay, so looking down here, for example, at the entry from 3:08 a.m., vital signs, what does that represent to you?
So the vital signs are, again, a standard part of triaging a patient and being able to get them to a certain area of the emergency department. So her temperature was 97 degrees Fahrenheit. Her heart rate was 140. Her respiratory rate was 18. Blood pressure was 168/97. The SpO2 is her oxygen saturation, which anywhere from 96 to 100% is normal. The O2 device, she didn't require any supplemental oxygen. She was on room air. And then there's a pain assessment that's done for every patient as well on a scale of 0 to 10.
And so that would have been done while she was interacting with Jennifer O'Brien?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Give me a moment, please. So, jurors, you see the black boxes here. So when an exhibit is entered, there's some things on the exhibit that may not be admissible. That's what the black boxes are for. Sometimes that means I made a ruling. Here, I didn't make a ruling. The two sides agreed themselves what was relevant, what was not relevant. So an important point is things that are blacked out are not blacked out because they're relevant. They're blacked out because they're not relevant. So you're not missing anything that's probative to the case. It's the irrelevant information, and you're not to speculate on what might be beneath the black box. And we call those, in the legal world, we call those redactions.
Thank you. On the next page, which is page 14 within the medical record, do you see the entries at 3:10 a.m. that include your name?
Yes, I do.
Can you explain what it means when it says provider first contact there at 3:10:54 a.m.?
Yes, so from the time the patient comes into triage to get the vitals, et cetera, they're then moved back to a room in the emergency department. When that happens and they come up on our screen, a provider will assign themselves. So that's what I did, where you see assigned resident, and then provider first contact was when I first went in to see the patient.
So moving now to page 15, can you explain what appears to be your order there means?
Yes, so this is a documentation about the evidence collection kit. It's an order to get the patient into a private room, have certain tools set up to perform the necessary parts of the exam. And there's a placement in there to call a SANE nurse, which is a trained nurse to perform the evidence collection portion of the exam. They cover the Boston area, so we have to put out phone calls and pages to them, and if they are available, they will come and perform the exam. But nurses as well as physicians in the emergency department are also trained and frequently do these exams as well.
Thank you. I'm going to move through the next portion of the timeline down to the bottom of page 15. Do you see where it says 3:35 a.m. and it notes that a SANE was paged?
Yes, I do.
And is that the time when you requested that forensic nurse to come to the hospital?
Yes.
And just moving through the remaining portion of the timeline, is it fair to say that the next couple of pages, as I'll scroll through, shows that different labs were being ordered and resulted from during that time, and that she was interacting with different medical personnel within the emergency department.
Yes.
So now looking here at the entry toward the top of the page from 3:39 a.m., do you see where it says patient observation within the bottom of that section, and it says per MD Lindsay Walsh, patient medically cleared?
Yes.
What does that mean?
So medical clearance, we document this as part of a SANE evaluation as well as for patients coming in with mental health complaints. It means that from the clinician standpoint, we have cleared this patient from having any sort of life-threatening injuries and have determined that they are able to participate in their own care. They're alert, they're oriented, they understand what the medical care being provided to them includes, and they're able to tell us the risks, benefits, et cetera, and participate fully in their care.
And here, was that done because you were seeking consent to undergo an evidence collection kit?
Correct, yes. It is also part of the consent process. We have to make sure that a patient fully understands what is entailed in an evidence collection kit. So that is also part of it.
We need to take a break here. Up next, the doctor testifies about what observations she made about the victim's head and eyes. Keep it here with us on Court TV Live.
Tonight on Closing Arguments, a parent's worst nightmare. A 5-year-old girl left unrecognizable after she was brutally beaten by other children. We'll dive deeper into this tragic case.
Closing Arguments, tonight at 8/7 Central, only on Court TV.
Donna Edelson wasn't a regular mother.
She's the matriarch mastermind.
She's just being a parent, not a killer.
Victim to Verdict with Ted Rowlands. Season finale, Saturday night at 8 Eastern and Pacific.
Only on Court TV.
Care.
Let's head back to court now for more testimony from the ER doctor who treated the accuser. And we want to remind you that we cannot air the alleged victim's name. We want to protect her privacy. That's also a court order to do so. So you will hear the audio drop during those times.
Do you see where it says ED provider note by Kamal Medledge?
Yes.
And who is he?
Kamal Medledge was the attending physician that was initially assigned to take care of the patient along with myself.
Okay, so page 22, the very bottom of page 22 and page 23, is this Dr. Medledge's note regarding essentially his oversight of the care of Ms.
Yes.
So I'm going to move down to the bottom of page 23, and again, at the very bottom of this page, do you see where your note begins?
Yes.
And so on page 24, where it says ED provider note continued, history of present illness, is this essentially where the substance of your note begins?
Yes, it is.
And can you explain what you documented here?
Yes, so in these types of cases where we see patients coming in with the complaints such as Ms. We don't document the evidence collection kit. We don't have any redundancy in our documentation. So I state why she came in. I talk about her various vaccination statuses, and then I refer to the evidence collection for further detailed documentation of the genitourinary portion of the exam. I state that she has no neck swelling, no redness on her neck, no bruising, no hematomas, which are things that we look for as part of the medical clearance process, because any evidence of those could indicate some sort of strangulation injury. And then the review of systems is when we ask the patient about specific symptoms that we then document in the chart as well.
So the review of systems here, is that something that you documented, or did you draw that from another provider's notes within the record?
This is what I documented.
Okay. And so as part of your, it's called a review of systems, would you have made observations of Ms. head and eyes, her neck, and other parts of her body?
Yes.
How do you do that? Is there a full physical examination that happens then, or what's involved in the review of systems?
So yes, the review of systems is part of the history taking. When we ask the patient, what brings them in, we go through all of these symptoms, and the patient will essentially say yes or no. We document that, and then the physical exam, which is further down in my note, is separate, where we actually examine the patient, look at the skin, listen to the lungs, heart, etc.
Okay. So I'm going to scroll down further within your note where it says pertinent vital signs and pertinent exam findings. Again, are these notes that you input based on your examination of this?
Yes.
Under pertinent exam findings, where it says neuro, moving all four extremities, motor function intact, and speech fluent, can you explain what that means?
Yes. So our neurologic documentation for a patient includes, do they have any sort of paralysis? Are we concerned about a stroke? That's like where this comes from. So she was moving all of her extremities, motor function intact, meaning she was able to move everything. She had no deficits, as we would call it. And fluent speech means that she's not having slurred speech. She's not, having any facial droop. She's clear. She's coherent.
Looking at the assessment and plan portion of your note, can you explain what you documented there?
Yes, so the assessment is our overall summary of, based on our physical exam, the presenting history, what we think might be going on. So I say that this is a 28-year-old female who presented with the complaint, as we've discussed. We take into account the time frame in these specific patient scenarios for when, an event happened and when they are coming in, because that will dictate what types of medications we can give as a precaution or to treat possible infections that might be there. So she presented within the 120-hour window for the forensic evaluation and then also to receive certain types of medications. I documented that she consented to the evidence collection kit, which included forensic documentation and then evidence collection. Involvement of a BARC, which is basically a support that we provide for resources when patients come in with concern for sexual assault. We gave prophylaxis, which is medication that we give as a precaution if somebody is pregnant, and also to treat any possible sexually transmitted infection. And she was unsure of her hepatitis B immune status, so we test those labs as well.
Okay. We saw earlier in the note, or in this record, that you had paged, or someone had paged a SANE nurse at approximately 3:35 a.m.
Yes.
Did one of those forensic nurses arrive?
No, the forensic nurse, after we have a protocol for how often and how frequently we reach out, and that's all documented. The SANE evaluator who was on call on that overnight had another case, so she was at a different care facility.
And you said that when that situation arises, when a SANE or a forensic nurse is not available, that a registered nurse or a doctor within the emergency department can step in and perform an evidence collection kit.
Correct. Typically in those cases, the emergency room nurse and the responding clinician, the assigned provider, do the exam and the collection together.
And in this case, was that you and Nurse Carly Littlejohn?
Yes.
In your role as an emergency department doctor, had you been previously trained in how to perform an evidence collection kit?
Yes, I had been previously trained, and I had performed these collection kits previously.
All right, why don't we go ahead and bring in National Trial Attorney Michael Schaefer, who is here with us now to discuss. Michael, I believe we got those technical difficulties worked out. Nice to see you, Michael, as we watch this case out of Boston, and Judge Ashley and I have talked about it. It is so fascinating, this case. It's a retrial for him. Give me your thoughts. We're just listening to someone on the stand now just talking about, this is a rape case, and she's providing some testimony now. What are you taking away?
What I'm taking away is this is a very winnable case for the defense attorney. If the defense attorney performs on even half of the promises he made in his opening statement, he should get an acquittal. I'm thinking of two two rape defendants I represented with identical facts, minus the whole Irish fleeing the country thing, and I got an acquittal for both defendants, right? And I was a young attorney. This is a very winnable case. The burden of proof of beyond a reasonable doubt is a very, very high burden. It's the highest burden in the land. And so with no DNA evidence and with the corroborating evidence of her being in that room, not being accosted and brought into that room, there's so much reasonable doubt. Did he probably do it? Maybe. Women usually will not lie about something like that. So my hunch tells me he did it. But whether or not he's guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, that is a very high burden. I'm curious as to why it was a hung jury in the first trial, but this is a very winnable case. The defense attorney is an average order. He could have done a much better job in the opening statement, but he linked the events in a way that, for me, I said, if he can prove half, if he can deliver on half of those promises, it should be an acquittal.
So I think the reason it may have been a mistrial was some of what you said, in addition to the victim testifying. I think the jury must have believed her, some of the jury, and that's why there's a mistrial. But I want to hone in, and I'd asked Kelly about this when we lost you with technicalities earlier, because the thing that I think really makes a difference in this case is if it's true, which we expect it to be, the defense said in opening, that the victim has never identified the defendant. I think that's a significant reason why there may be a mistrial the first time, or why you may suggest there might be an acquittal.
I fully agree with your analysis on that. 1,000% agree with your analysis on that. That, on top of the fact that there's no forensic evidence that he interacted with her, all of that is why, in my opinion, it's no question an acquittal. Again, a woman isn't going to lie about something like that. What bothers a defense attorney is when the prosecutor can get into evidence the fact that there's so much shame that comes to a woman, unfortunately, when she brings something like this to light, and she's vilified by even people close to her. And so that is sad, and that is something that hurts the defense's position if the jury hears that, which is why I think probably he did this, right? Why would she complain? Has somebody complained about rape before and lied? Yes, it has happened before. Is it the majority of the time? No, it's not the majority of the time. So I think he probably did this, but whether or not the prosecution can prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, I think it's tough.
Yeah, it's a tough case, and the victim having to testify again is traumatic to her based on those allegations. Michael Jafer, thank you so much for joining us tonight, as always.
We have a lot more coming up next. Next testimony continues in the Irish firefighter rape trial in Massachusetts. The emergency room doctor wraps up her testimony, and then we hear from the accuser herself. Keep it here on your front row seat to justice. Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Kelly Craft, in tonight from Michael Ayala. Thank you for being with us. We will head back to court in just a moment, but first, let's catch you up on some other big cases Court TV is tracking. In Florida, after an hour and a half of deliberations, the jury returned a guilty verdict in the toxic relationship murder trial. This was for Daisy Link. The jury found her guilty of second-degree murder in the shooting death of her boyfriend, Pedro Jimenez. Sentencing is tentatively scheduled for the week of Thanksgiving. Also in Wisconsin, defendant Paris Larry is caught in the Crossfire murder trial, took the stand today in his own defense. He told the jury that he fired his gun because he was afraid for his life. Closing arguments there are set to begin tomorrow morning. Also in California, the father of 7-month-old Emmanuel Haro pleaded guilty to second-degree murder in the case of his missing son. Jake and Rebecca Haro were charged in the baby's murder after he was reported missing. This was on August 14th. Jake will be sentenced on November 3rd. Rebecca Haro was also in court but pleaded not guilty to an amended criminal complaint. Right now, we want to get you back to court in our newest case. This is the Irish firefighter rape trial that's taking place in Boston. The defendant, Terence Crosbie, it's his second time being tried for allegedly raping a woman in a Boston hotel room last year. His first trial ended in June, and that was a mistrial. He and his friend were in town visiting from Ireland, and prosecutors claim that Crosbie raped the woman after she and his roommate had gone back to the hotel to have consensual sex. According to the victim, she fell asleep in one of the beds and woke up to find Crosbie raping her. We want to get you back into the courtroom now. The ER doctor who treated the accuser is still on the stand, and at times you may hear the audio drop. Now that's because we are under a court order not to mention the accuser's name.
In order for a patient to be able to consent to an evidence collection kit, are there certain criteria that they must meet before it can move forward?
Yes.
And what are those criteria?
So we talked about some of them already. So a patient needs to be able to have an organized conversation, be able to, I'll have patients repeat back, what I just told them, ask them to summarize to make sure that they understand. In this case, this is a sensitive exam involving the genitourinary portion of the body. So the patient has to understand that there may be discomfort involved, and understand that, we are doing a sensitive exam, and then be able to tell us, why we are doing this, and what, risks, if any, are associated with a physical exam. So that is typically, those are the types of questions that I ask when doing that.
If a patient presents to you as being under the influence of drugs or alcohol, would you deem them capable of consenting to an evidence collection kit?
No.
If a person is displaying signs of intoxication or impairment, do you consider that relevant to your medical decision-making around their treatment?
Yes, and we would typically document that.
That you anticipated my next question, which was, is that something that you would note in the patient's medical record if you observed it?
Yes.
And in this case, did you determine that Ms. was capable of consenting to the evidence collection kit?
Yes.
Did Ms. in fact then go on to consent to the performance of that kit?
Yes.
Is it accurate that there are multiple standardized components to an evidence collection kit?
Yes.
Just to help the jury visualize what it is an evidence collection kit? What does it look like?
Yeah, so it is a box that comes, it's sealed. We open it up. We follow all of the instructions. So there's a portion where any clothing worn, during that the patient was wearing at the time, they bring that in. That is bagged for collection. If there's any concern for oral trauma, there are swabs that are done in the mouth. And then after that, after the clothing collection, after any sort of oral swabs, if necessary, you then move on to the GU portion of the exam, which involves an external genital exam with swabs collected from the external genitalia. It then involves perianal swabs, so swabs collected from the rectum. And then there is an internal genital exam, where in the case of females, there's a speculum that's inserted into the vagina. We look for signs of trauma, infections, etc.